Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Signal or Noise. This is episode 60. Charlie Bilello here, and with me, as always, my co-host, Peter Mallouk. Peter, big topic for today. A lot of people have been asking for this. How do I teach what's important to my kids, high school, entering college? I know you've talked a lot about this, so we're going to cover today 5 things that should be required learning in high school. And getting a lot of requests also to talk about the shutdown. So we'll touch on that. Is it a signal or is it just noise? We'll dig through the latest there as well. Let's begin. 5 things that should be required learning in high school. And these all come from posts from Peter on X. If you're not following Peter, get over there, follow him at Peter Mallouk. Number 1, how a credit card works. Now, Peter, you're not suggesting there's a lot of extremes in terms of credit cards. You're not suggesting that people should not have credit cards or they should avoid it and just pay for cash everything, but just really more so understanding how they work and understanding that if you don't pay off this balance, well, now you're facing an interest rate today of 21% on average. Am I
That's
getting that right?
that's right. It's not a bad thing to establish credit. Get a credit card and pay it off every month. Um, the issue with the credit card is people spend a lot more when they use a credit card or cash because it doesn't feel like real money. So it's easier to let spending get away from you. You get the bill 20, 30 days later. So you're not really feeling the pain right away. And then you get this bill, you look at minimum payment, you make the minimum payment, and then the balance is accruing at 21.4%. We all know about compounding working in your favor. If you invest in the market, the stocks will go up over the long run, and this compounding effect creates a lot of wealth. It also works in reverse. It can cause debt to spiral out of control and become something you just can't get yourself out of.
Right. So let's talk about that. There's a record amount of credit card debt in the US right now, 1.2 trillion at that average rate of over 21% if you don't pay it off each month. And about 12% of the balances are 90 plus days delinquent if you look at credit cards, and that has been rising over the past few years, actually the highest we've seen in more than a decade. But here's the math, right, Peter, where it's really compounding against you. If you save and invest and you look at a 30-year investment of $10,000, you could see the growth to 176,000. If you have this same amount in credit card debt and you're just making that minimum payment, well, you're paying a total of 16,000 in interest if you're making that minimum payment and then 1% of the balance. So paying that off over 30 years is a very bad idea. Not only are you losing out on not saving and investing, but you're paying interest a huge amount over this period of time.
That's right. I mean, it's something that can get away from you very, very, very quickly. If you're going to have a credit card, keep your spending under control, pay off the balance in full every single month. Rule number 1 if you're a teenager or in college.
When do you think it's appropriate for someone to first get that credit card, and how would you handle that?
I think going to college, getting a credit card that has a maximum limit that is still pretty low is a good way to establish that you can get you can have bills and you can pay them off. Not a necessity by any means. Don't go out of your way to get one. I'm just not against people having them. The key is to make sure it doesn't get away from you.
All right, let's go to number 2 here, how to create a budget. And for a lot of people watching, this may be simple, but for when you're just starting out, when you're a kid, the money's just coming in, right? You're getting gifts, you may get an allowance, you may have a job, but it's hard to really figure out a budget. And so the first question would be, Peter, is like, when should people start to figure this out? And how do you do it with teenagers when they're not paying most of the expenses and they're getting some cash flow somehow? How do you instill the discipline of having some type of budget?
I think just basically understanding how one works. Like, hey, I'm mowing lawns or I'm babysitting or whatever it is I'm doing. This is the revenue that I think I'm going to get, each month from doing that. Here are the subsidies I'm going to get from my parents if you're getting allowance, things like that. So now you've got your revenue at column done. Maybe you're getting holiday gifts and so on. Then go through, well, what are the expenses you are responsible for? Are you going to have to pay for some of college? Do you have to buy tennis shoes on your own? Or if you want the new phone, you've got to save for it on your own. get a sense, write down what those expenses are going to be and when they come due, and try to get the revenues and expenses to match. This doesn't have to be like this incredible spreadsheet or anything complicated. The thing is, just instead of money randomly coming in, you randomly buying things, just write it down. Here's what I think is coming in and when it's coming in, and here's what I'm going to be able to do with it. And that's the beginning of budgeting.
And in terms of breaking down expenses, I think it's important for people to think about, well, there's certain expenses that you have to pay. You have your cell phone bill, you have car payments, you're going to have insurance, things that are required, and you can negotiate those lower. But there's also this bucket, Peter, of discretionary expenses where people and kids will have the opportunity to go out to dinner or go to Starbucks or go to a concert or maybe take a trip. And if you're having trouble saving money, this is really the first place people should look, is that discretionary bucket, right?
That's right. The part that is optional, right? The discretionary basically means up to you to do whatever you want with it. You don't have to do it month to month to survive like you do keeping the lights on.
Now, I know though you're a big believer, Peter, in this idea that some experiences expire. Should
Mm.
someone who's in college or just graduating college, just starting their career, should they eliminate all of these discretionary expenses so they could save as much as possible to max out their IRA, 401k, and the other stuff? How do you think about that part, that balancing
No,
act?
I think you should definitely have a good time. When you're in high school and college, these are the possibility for some of the best moments in your life. Don't miss anything important. Don't save money to not go to dinner before homecoming. Don't save money to not go on senior trip with your friends. These are things that you should be experiencing. And that where you want to control your discretionary is things that are beyond those special experiences that expire, then maybe you don't have to have.
So, how about this one though? If you don't have the money, should you put it on a credit card? Let's say you can't pay it off maybe for a year. That experience that is going to expire, is that
I mean, that is
would you say that's okay?
that I think if it's the once in a lifetime experience, like you're gonna miss prom, like I mean, yeah, go ahead and put it on the credit card. But upgrading your iPhone, no.
Okay. Fair point. Let's go to number three. Hugely important, how compounding of interest and returns impact wealth. I'm just showing you a simple illustration here. Over 30 years, if you invest $100,000, 10% return, simple interest, it grows to 400,000, compound interest almost 2 million. So there's no comparison. You want to reinvest your dividends, your interest to have this growth in wealth. You obviously don't want to take those gains out of the market each and every year. You want to let that grow and compound with time. And Peter, when we talk about the difference of investing early, I think this visual that you put out really tells an important story of what the growth of an investment in the S&P 500 would be had you invested 10 years ago. And pretty good. You almost did 4x your money. But if you look at 20 years ago, you're talking about a huge difference there, 10x. If you're looking at 30 years ago, it goes up exponentially with time. How important is understanding the magic of compounding for teenagers?
I mean, the single most important advantage an investor can have isn't competence. It's not access to great advisors or managers or products. It's time. Time is the single most important thing an investor can have. And so the teenager in high school, the kid in college has this enormous edge over everybody else. If you can put away $100, $200 a month every 7 or 8 years, in the stock market, that money is going to double. And you think about over the course of your life, this gives you, 8 or 9 doublings of that account. You can see, as your chart shows, I mean, $10,000 invested 10 years ago is 39,000. $10,000 invested 50 years ago is $4 million. I mean, just think about how incredible that is. I mean, if you're 18, 19, 20, and over 3, 4 years, you managed to put away 10,000 somehow. I mean, and you wake up and you're in your 60s, it's going to be $4 million. Now, of course, inflation takes a little bit from that, but a lot from that. But you would still be in real dollars pretty wealthy relative to other Americans just from that one $10,000. It shows the advantage that young people have if you are in a position where you're able to put away even a little bit of money every month.
Absolutely. And in terms of where to put that, taxes are pretty important. So after the 401k where you can get a match, I think what you often advise people is go with the Roth IRA. Why is that the case?
The Roth IRA grows tax free, and then when you are in retirement, you take the money out, it comes out tax free. There's just nothing better than that.
Absolutely. You can see the difference here if you just invested in a taxable account versus a Roth IRA over this period of time. You're talking about a $700,000 difference if you're investing starting at age 25 and you invest till 65. So, huge differential. Use the tax code to your advantage. And if you have that savings earlier in your career, after you do the 401k max, this is the next place we would advise that you go. Okay, let's talk about number 4 here. How loans and credit scores work. Peter, very simply break it down for me. What are the factors that go into a FICO score? People want to have a higher score. We know that, but it's a little bit of confusion in terms of how do you get that higher score?
So the main thing they look at makes up a little over a third of your score is what's your payment history? When you get an electric bill, when you get your phone bill, when you get your credit card bill, do you pay it on time? This is why when we were talking about earlier, if you do get a credit card, you pay it on time every month, it's going to help you in the future get credit to buy a home or a car or something like that. The FICO score is what people will look up before they will issue a credit card to you or before they'll let you borrow money to buy a car or something like that. So one is payment history, pay your bills on time. The second is how much is owed. We have huge balances relative to your income, small balances. Third is length of credit history. Like if you've paid your bills for 1 month, you're not going to get a great FICO score. But if you've been doing it over and over again for 30 months, 40 months, 50 months, you're going to have a better score. And then the credit mix and new credit makes up the rest. So they're looking at how much of what you've got access to borrow is new, and they're looking at how many different places you have credit from. Like if you've got 4 credit cards, the fifth company going to be a little less excited because they know that you're able to rack up debt across a bunch of different places. So the main thing is pay your bills on time every single month. That's over time going to give you a good credit score.
And what do you consider to be a good credit score, Peter? I mean,
I think if you're in the 700s, you're in really good shape. And I think the cutoff for good is 670. But if you get in the 700s, you're in really, really good shape.
and all this data is available, where you could go to any of the credit major like Experian and get this for free pretty much every year. I believe, isn't that the
That's
case?
correct. Yeah, you should
Yeah,
check your credit score once a year for sure. It's free.
and this is really why it's important. Now, if you never had to borrow money, I suppose your credit score wouldn't matter whatsoever. But most people at some point in time will either have an auto loan, a mortgage, and they're going to look. The first thing they're going to look at is that credit score. So the higher the credit score, the lower the interest rate that you're going to pay. You can see here, this is assuming a 350,000 mortgage. The difference between what you'd be paying in total interest and your monthly payment, having a higher score, let's say 840 versus 620, the difference could be substantial. So having that better credit score, Peter, could mean 100,000, maybe even more than that, depending on the size of the mortgage, of savings from having that better credit history.
Yes, definitely. I think that this carries through kind of your whole life. All of the small things you're going to do, like a low balance credit card, to a big mortgage, a second home mortgage, borrowing money for a business. This rating is really going to drive the price you pay for debt going forward.
And we have to talk about the other big loan category here, Peter, which would be student loans. And I really feel like this should be its own class in high school, just given how important it is on people's financial lives. Very different than, let's say, 40 years ago. If we're looking at here, the increase in college tuition and fees over the last 40 years, over 700% versus about 200% for overall CPI. So the numbers have gotten much bigger, Peter. It's become harder to pay it off. We're seeing an increase in delinquencies rising here with the resumption of student loan payments, about 10% of people's balances. But if they just had a class in high school where you really understood, here is the projected lifetime income from this major, from this career that you're going to be pursuing, from that degree, And here is what it's going to cost you from that loan, and breaking that down for people. This is what your monthly payment is going to be. This is how much of a percentage of income. I think that would be dramatically helpful to help people decide where they should go to school, how much loans they should take, looking at different ways to finance college, and what career they should pursue. To me, it's just a common sense thing, and given how important it is, I'm just shocked that we're not doing this already.
Yeah, I mean, the counselor, as part of their job, should be the college counselor should be walking through, here's the value of your degree and here's the cost you're spending to get it, and how reasonable and feasible is this? Because universities are just going to take advantage of those of you in high school. Uh, your future debt problem, they don't care. That's not their issue. They just want you to pay your tuition, go to their school. And so, like, you carry a lot of debt and you're getting a medical degree, fine, it will work itself out. But if you're carrying a lot of debt and you're getting a degree that does not translate into economic income to then pay off the debt, you become a slave, a debt slave, for the rest of your life, or at least for decades. And that's the kind of a very bad spot to be. And unfortunately, that's how most student loans turn out.
Yeah, and 18 years old, you probably don't have the ability to think of that through, right? If unless someone is educating you on it. And so do your homework. If you're watching this, do your homework on careers. On We're not saying don't pursue that career. We're saying don't take that big debt if it's going to be impossible to pay it back based on that career. There's other options, right? There's state schools, there's scholarships, there's many other ways you can try to achieve that same job and not be burdened by this. And people, we're hearing stories, Peter. There was an article in the Journal a few weeks ago that people in their 40s, 50s, 60s still saddled with this debt. It's
Oh, yeah.
becoming like a second mortgage payment for these people, and that's a huge thing that's impacting people well beyond the period they thought they would have to deal with this.
Oh, I have many, many, many clients in their 40s and 50s that still carry student debt. It's terrible. And I think it can get through it with a 20-minute coaching session with a college counselor that cares about the student and helps them think through the debt versus their degree would solve most of this problem.
Yeah, and this is a separate episode, and we'll probably do it at some point in terms of how to solve the higher education costs. We touched on it before, but I think part of the equation has to be some responsibility of that university in terms of they can't just saddle this person with that debt knowing that they're not going to be paid off. So they need to have some skin in the game in terms of the university, is my view on this. Okay, and let's go to number 5 here. And this was an interesting article that was in the Journal the other day, talking about how career advice to kids has never been higher because of AI, the challenges, and there was a lot of stuff in the article talking about what parents are trying to advise their kids in terms of training and different things they should do in terms of majors and double majoring and network. There was a whole lot in there, Peter. But what I didn't see is kind of the soft skills that you often talk about, the importance of these skills, which I think are going to be more important than ever going forward. So let's talk about this. This is something you've posted about a number of times. And a young person should know, yes, they want to get that skill set and get as many different skills as they can, that where they can add value. But you can add value in ways without talent at all. And these are 5 things I'm going to let you talk through, 5 things that you can do to contribute to an organization, contribute to anything without having any talent whatsoever.
Yeah, I mean, I promise you, if you're young and you can just do these things wherever you're at, you are going to stand out. People are going to notice. So, one, be prepared, show up early, few minutes early. Just be, if the meeting is at 9, show up at 8:55, right? And be prepared. Most people will not walk into a room prepared. It's an edge if you walk in actually knowing what's going on. Smile and have a positive attitude. People want to work with people that they like. People like other people that are generally positive. You're going to walk around all day and complain. No one wants to work with you. Give it your all and go the extra mile. So even just one more step, like let's say you've got a project and you go, hey, is there something else I can do to help? That is going to stand out in today's world by a lot. Bring energy and passion. A lot of people come in, check the box, leave. If you're in a profession where you're talking to clients or third parties or internally, just like if you're in your friend group, you're more attracted to the person that's got a little more energy, wants to have a little bit more fun. It's the same thing at work. And then be humble enough to know you can learn from people around you. So if you get your first job, being able to go to others and go, can I shadow you? How do you do this? I've noticed you do this really well. You're really successful. What tips do you have for me? Get yourself around those people. Proximity is destiny, and learn all you can from them. None of these require a degree. None of these are brain surgery. I'm telling you, 95% of people don't do these very basic things, and they are very, very clear separators.
Awesome. So there we go. 5 things that should be required learning in high school. Let's go to signal or noise, Peter. The government is shut down once again, and it's seems like it's going to go on for a while because we're at an impasse. They're fighting about healthcare spending here. There was an enhanced premium subsidy that was passed during the pandemic. The Republicans want to let it expire at the end of the year. The Democrats don't want to let it expire. They could be, if it wasn't this, it would be something else. They're going to always argue about something. But the one thing that is for sure, Peter, regardless of when this is resolved, is that the national debt's going to go up. And as you often say, they argue about spending, but it's really about what thing they want to spend on. And if we look at the national debt in terms of presidencies here, you can see it's up and to the right, and that's happening once again this year. What's your take on the government shutdown? Any insights from what's going on here, or is it
I
just
mean,
business as usual?
Bush, Obama, Trump, Biden, Trump, deficit goes up no matter what. Just like you said, Charlie, they spend money on different things. I say, till I'm blue in the face, the market's not red or blue, it's green. It just cares about money. The government shutdown, unless it went on for months and months and months, which it's not going to do, is not going to be disruptive to the markets or overly disruptive to the economy. It's incredibly disruptive to the families that are not getting paid, that have government jobs. But as an investor, it is not. It happens over and over again. This one's going on a little longer than normal, but it will resolve itself as it always does.
Yeah, agreed. It boggles my mind. Like every time that this goes on, that there's not some thing to prevent this in the future, and especially with simple things like air traffic controllers. You wouldn't think
Right.
that that would be subject to this. Why isn't that separated out, or why why isn't it privatized as they do in Canada? It seems to work very well.
What they need to do is pass a law that says if you're in Congress, you will not be paid until the government is reopened, and you will not be reimbursed when the
Yeah,
government
how
reopens.
about that?
That's
Right,
it. Just
it's
do
not
that.
retroactive.
Problem
Yeah.
solved. Yeah.
Yeah, they wouldn't do this, and they could argue about it. But about the spending. We're not going to say one way or another. Is it good? Is it bad? Like they argue about different. Let them argue about it. But why can't the government be running while they're having that debate? That just doesn't make any sense to me. So hopefully it is resolved. And in terms of when it'll end, you can of course bet on that. Nowadays, I don't advise that you do that, but Polymarket so far has gotten it right. They said the people bet that it would last at least until the 15th. It seems pretty likely, unless we see some last minute deal today, that it will. And they're expecting it to last, it seems like, probably another few weeks. And ultimately, of course, it will end. And really, the question, Peter, for the stock market is it a signal or is it just noise? And this chart pretty much tells you the answer to that. Historically, it's been noise. Doesn't mean the stock market can't go down during a shutdown, but the last 6, we actually had positive returns. And the average since the 1970s is a little bit of a positive return, but I wouldn't read much into this. Do you have a different take on that?
I agree. Total noise.
Yeah, it would have to last, as you said, for a really, really long time where it starts to impact consumer spending, right? And then you're talking about a real hit to the economy. But even then, it seems unlikely because most of this pay is going to be made up retroactively, and people will then just spend when they get the money at some point in the future. Okay, so we're going to say pretty much noise in terms of the shutdown's impact on the stock market for the economy. Depends how long it will last. Just a reminder, everyone that's watching this, we have 2 more big events. We're doing these Connect events around the country. We're going to Florida at the end of this month, Tampa, Miami, Fort Lauderdale. If you're in that area, sign up. We hope to see you there. creativeplanning.com/regional connect. And thanks everyone for joining us. once again on Signal or Noise. If you're not subscribed to our YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button for all the latest content from us. And Peter and I will see you the next time on Signal or Noise.